Emma helped me diddle with the carburetor too, which was quite nice to watch. It's always wonderful watching Emma turn screws on a carburetor.
I got to watch her diddle a carburetor once with a popsicle stick split in half.
Oh,
two
yes,
carburetors,
that.
actually. We were getting
yes, that.
a whole rack of them, as it were.
Us too. Right, so just so you know, as soon as Bagel comes in, we're gonna get going. Doug wanted to join us, but he just said that he's having technical difficulties. But
Lives up in the woods.
So
he's having a wank.
So for the first hour, we are going to be.
I'm having one right now. Where's my Miss Emma sticker? Where's my Miss Emma sticker? She looks angry at me.
I know. Boys like that. Boys
Mistress
like
Emma. Mistress Emma.
Hey there, welcome to Motorcycles and Misfits. Coming to you from the Recycle Garage in sunny Santa Cruz, California. Hey everyone, how you doing? I needed to get that in while I could because you missed it, so just keep chalking without me.
I thought you were going to just post my my other entrance, my other introduction from last week.
Oh, you like that? Did you guys, by any chance, watch the YouTube Zoom of our show last week? I totally didn't catch it until I was posting the video. But as I was getting ready to come in with the introduction, Jim, who was still driving in his car, he says,
Truck.
I've got gas. And then proceeds to fart. And the Zoom stayed on him the whole time.
Excellent.
Dude, it was full on gangster lean too. I made a face, I scowled, I gangster leaned over. Ooh. The green box lit up around me. That's how loud it was.
I made sure I made a note of it with a countdown in the video. Countdown to fart.
Was it the final countdown?
Oh my God, we are so loopy again. So I have to remember to get to our introductions so I don't miss it again. Hey everyone, this is Liza, and I had a great day today, and I'm hoping everyone else did. Well, let's find out. Joining us in order of showing up in the Zoom. First one is it's Rick.
Hey, I'm Rick. I live in a trailer.
I never knew that.
It's ridiculous.
That means
fun fact, you know.
Yeah, I just never noticed it until I think you open up the blinds. I'm like, hey, you're in a trailer.
Yeah, you got the accoutrements, but yeah, nice. Yeah, I had a pretty good week too. Got my bikes have been broken and not rideable, but at work I've gotten to do a hell of a lot of test riding, filling in. So I kind of been cheating on the old girls, and it's kind of been fun.
Ooh. Yeah. Oh, that's good. And then let's see, the next one up was it? I think it was Miss Emma.
Well,
hello.
Well, I'll tell you what I want, what I really want, and I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really, really want. I wanna. Hello, darling. Hello, darling. I've been at the gin.
Very nice.
I've been at the gin, and what I did, you see, I filled up this Perrier bottle with gin. So when you're taking a little sip, people say, "Oh, you're being terribly healthy. You're drinking Perrier, darling, Perrier."
Lies.
And it is. It's lies. Fizzy gin. No, everything's tickety boo. It's everything's going very, very well, and I think we should talk about Jim's magic day yesterday.
We're going to introduce him, and we'll get there.
Yes, I like the sound of that.
And of course, it's everybody's favorite naked man. It's Naked Jim.
Yes, Naked Jim. Yes, from the waist down tonight, for all of y'all's benefit. Anyway, peace loving dirt bikes. That's what I got for tonight.
Peace loving rubber duckies.
Peace loving thumpers.
And then looking dapper.
This is where that went.
It's Bagel.
Hello. Greetings.
I want you to know, Bagel, we had a new person show up at the garage today.
Oh yeah.
who is about to take the class. She's like, I want to get into motorcycles. She's going to take her class. And she was talking with Micah, who is advising her on different bikes. And I said, you know what? And do not rule out scooters. We'd never remember to also include scooters in that list when we're talking about small displacement bikes for starting out.
Cool.
And I said, and think about that. And she said, well, I think I want to do touring and around town. I said, you're not going to do touring. I mean, Jim, you know as well as anyone. I mean, first 6 months, you never left town.
Yeah, I mean, I think I overheard you. The best advice to a new rider, I mean, whatever, or advice I'll say, but this is what I did: is I had a Nighthawk 250, and I rode it for 6 months, and I rode like 1,500 miles with barely getting on the freeway, right? Yeah. But that's a lot of shifting and a lot of braking and a lot of clutching. So by the time I got up to a big boy bike, the FC6. That was all total muscle memory. So it made it really simple, but get a little bike and just shift and clutch and brake and do that.
Yeah. Or a scooter, because you're still going to retrain your brain to get used to riding on the road and having cars around you. And she said the typical thing about, well, I'm scared to get on the freeway. I feel much more comfortable on the streets. We're like, no, it's the intersections that'll kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even a 250 or 300 scooter, it can be used for touring as well.
Exactly. And that's what we used you as an example. So that's why I wanted to let you know that just everything that you've taught us about scooters and their capabilities reminded me to include that as an option, as a two-wheeled option.
Great. Thank you, Liza.
You're welcome.
I remember following Bagel one time. Remember that ride we did with R1 Rich and his posse out to Yosemite and back that day?
Yeah.
Almost Yosemite. Who goes like within 5 miles of Yosemite and then you turn around?
Yeah.
You don't actually go there. But remember there was some downhill twisties, and Bagel, you were doing 90 on your scooter.
Yep. I had,
and I'm like, you were right in the pack of all the sport bikes. It was one of the funnest days watching you ride. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, that was a blast.
Yeah. So I'm doing better.
Cool.
You had a question for Jim?
Yes, Jim.
You talk amongst you. I forgot to go get my soda pop. I'm gonna go get a soda pop. I'll be right back.
No, Jim, you had quite a big day yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. We had a 3-course Italian meal. We had gnocchi. We had like beef bolognese with the round pastas, and then I had clams and
delicious as it was. I'm sure that somewhere in America right now they are recording an Italian food podcast, and this is of high interest to them. But alas, we are a motorcycle podcast, and we are interested in all things motorcycle.
And so fortunately, we also did motorcycle things. So so the Ascot, the never-ending Ascot project, I'll call it that. But long story short, we breathed life into the motorcycle. So Emma came over, and we were just looking at it and pointing at it, and like I said, the wiring's hooked up. By some miracle, it works. So power to the starter.
I think that was my favorite part. Your reluctance to even think that it was possible it might start.
No, it's still.
Well, no, I mean,
wake up.
So the conversation went. So the we're sitting out. It was a beautiful evening. So we're sitting out on the back patio, pushing Italian food into our faces and enjoying every mouthful. And right behind us is the Ascot. And Jim says, it turns over on the button. And he was really surprised by it. And I said, well, have you got a spark? Did you check for a spark yet? And he said, no. So I just unwound the spark plug cap and just held the high tension lead away from the spark plug and got cranking. Beautiful fat blue spark. And I said, well, listen, you got a spark, mate. And so he fished around in the garage, and there's this brand new Mikuni that's supposedly jetted for the bike. And I said, come on, let's slap it on. We're going to run it right now.
Well, it was fun we did right before that, a kind of like a proof of concept was we just sprayed some starter fluid right into the cylinder head, just right in there. And
right into the intake because, I wanted to hear it thump.
And it did.
It thumped pretty good. But of course you can't do anything more than just a very quick squirt because it's equivalent to holding the carburetor wide open. I mean, you've got a big, like 34 millimeter hole. So we got it to thump and said, right, let's get the Mikuni on it. and we got a little remote reservoir for the fuel, and there you go. Pop, 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 pop.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Nice.
It fired right up. It was amazing. Yeah, and then Emma diddled it, little diddle and a daddle. A turn here and a twist there, and it idled, and it sounded great. Popped really well. Here's
Happy bike.
one little quick tip I'll throw out though.
Is it a
Lesson learned.
Misfits top tip?
Yes, because I am certainly a misfit when it comes to this stuff, dude. I learned the hard way. So I took meticulous pictures of the bike when I took it apart, like pictures of everything. And so to the wiring, every connection, everything, right? I'm like so smart. Well, anyway, I lost that phone and all the pictures in it. The only thing, yeah, gone, right? The only and so all the pictures from the whole tear down of the bike, all gone. The only thing that saved my ass was the pieces of tape where I wrote down, this goes to the green wire, from the whatever, or this is that. And so, yeah, I would just say when you start taking stuff apart, just put tape on it, mark it, put a zip tie and say what it is. Because taking pictures, I probably won't do that again.
Email yourself, maybe.
Maybe something like that. But at the end of the day, the piece of masking tape with this goes from the reg rec to the flux capacitor, that's what bailed me out. So, but it was super fun to fire it up, and it fired right up. It sounded pretty tough, that like basically what's an XL 500 motor. Yeah, I mean the petcock spewed fuel all over and fucked up some paint.
Well,
little things like that. Oh, I don't even want to get into the front axle issue, but anyway, at the end of the day, yeah, I rode it home from the garage. It was quite a miracle.
Hey, how did that go?
Yeah, it made it
Surprisingly well. Yeah, you should have seen me, dude. So Santa Cruz, I'm going down the street. I got my baseball hat under the brain bucket helmet, I got my backpack on. I got a motorcycle with like no headlights. There's wires coming out everywhere.
And I would like to say you live 2 blocks over.
Thank God.
Yeah.
So because the petcock was leaking, I had the auxiliary, the IV tank, gas tank dangling off the handlebar. So that's how I fed fuel to ride the however long it took to get home. But it got me home. Nothing. I thought like the front caliper was going to fall off and jam in the wheel, and I was going to launch, some catastrophic failure.
Right.
There has been precedent set at the shop.
Oh God.
Yes.
Yes,
Indeed.
Just the number of. Well, here's another Emma tip. At some point you got to start tightening up bolts. Because you take stuff on and off so often you stop tightening it. But I found probably another 3 bolts today that were finger tight. Well, we found some too. Some exhaust manifold bolts were still finger tight. So that's another one is you can never kind of go back over the bolts too many times, I don't think.
And
anyway,
it's sometimes you got to bite the bullet and you just kind of start at the front and work your way back and just, get a wrench on everything and,
So here was an interesting thing I'll share. A little a misfit. I don't know if it's a tip or not, but I thought it was interesting. So
one of the lower tips.
Yeah, so the lower tip, just the tip. So I had fucked up. So the axle bolt, the front axle bolt goes through the forks, right? And then at the other fork, it's threaded and it goes into that, threads in, you screw it in. Well, I had got something janky on it. There was a washer inside the wheel hub that hooked up to the Speedo, and that wasn't set crooked. So long story short, I kind of put the axle in it and I kind of got it janky and wedged. And I did some other terrible, horrible things, but we sorted it out. One of the interesting things I saw Emma do is because the end of the bolt was the axle bolt was kind of fucked up. The threads wouldn't bite and catch and pull into the other side. So Emma, you basically tapered the end of that axle bolt, right?
I just put a taper on the very, very end of it because what had happened is when you were kind of railing on it, trying to get it out and trying to overcome that pinch bolt.
The safety feature that I was trying to pound past.
The safety
with a hammer.
While you were misfitting.
Yes, you were misfitting.
It was horrible.
You kind of mushroomed the end of the axle a little bit. And normally, and it was a threaded piece. So I just put a tiny, tiny little taper at the end and got that mushrooming out and just cleaned up the threads a little bit. And sometimes to clean up a thread, it's nice if you have a proper tap and die set and you can run a die around it. But the chances are you haven't because dies are expensive. You know, taps are expensive, dies are even more so. And so if you just basically get a hacksaw blade, and you didn't see me do this because I was inside the workshop, but you get a hacksaw blade and you just clean up the threads with a hacksaw blade and just kind of make things basically the right shape. And if you put a taper on it, lots of grease and lubricant, tightens up lovely. And it worked great, didn't it?
It did. Yeah. I mean, there was some huffing and puffing, but once we kind of figured out what was going on, it went back together.
Yeah, well,
So
huffing and
amazing.
puffing's okay, you know.
Yeah.
If you're huffing and puffing, you're doing the right thing.
But Jim, I mean, that was a big moment today. That's a place where I think we've all been. When you build something, you spend that much time, and then the first time you sit on it and ride, even though it's just down the driveway, how did that feel?
It was really cool. I mean, yeah, to be able to actually, because, you know, you get to the point where it's like, I've broken so many things, and it's like, you know, it's been such a test of patience. And like, like the petcock like blew gas all over the place and it fucked up the engine paint. And I'm like, I don't care. You know what? I'll just fix it. You know, it's like you get so used to taking things apart and fixing them, taking them apart, that the little things don't bother you anymore. But there's nothing, when you hear it run, right? The personality of the bike, when you hear the exhaust note, that's where you're like, oh yeah, that's what this is all about. But yeah, to be able to, you know, get on it, you know, and ride it down the street, you know, get into third gear, like around your own neighborhood, especially, right, where they already think you're a nut job. But it was really cool. It was really satisfying. You know, because after you break enough stuff and you're used to failure, you're like, this is never gonna, no, this isn't. And it does. And I think it just speaks to the resiliency, honestly, of motorcycles in general. It's amazing how they work. It just is amazing. But it was cool. But I'll say lastly, here's probably the high notes. When I got home, I took a little video. I videoed it and I started it, you know, and I kind of showed a picture of it and then revved it, right? And then I sent it to Jake, right? Because this is Jake's old motorcycle. And she just sent me back a note like, oh, hell yeah, all stoked on it. So that's probably my favorite part so far, is just that Jake gets to see the bike converted, you know, her old bike converted into something new that still kind of represents part of her life. Have her be stoked on it, that was probably the highlight of the whole thing so far.
And Jim, you should share if you want to, what Jake does for a living and how the bike kind of ties into that, because you chose those colors for the bike very, very carefully, didn't you?
Yeah, I'll speak in some broad terms, but I think most people know Jake's in the Navy now and she's living her dream, and she works works around and in helicopters, and the bike paint scheme, it's a lot of silver and chrome, not chrome, but, you know, polished metal look, and rattle can metal. But it's gray in the front and then has kind of a red tail section, slopes into a red tail section. And her helicopter squadron has the same paint scheme. So since it's kind of her bike and you want to you know, what are you going to paint a bike like? You could try to be cool or whatever. But I was like, how fun. And it's kind of boring because it's this navy gray front, navy gray tank. But then as it sweeps into the rear of the tank and the tail section, it's kind of this fire engine red. And her, the logo is a scorpion. So we'll be putting some scorpions on it, some cool paint scorpions on the gas. Emma had a great idea about some intertwining scorpion tails, maybe wrapping around it. Yeah, so I think, so that's the paint scheme. So just to relate it back to Jake and her, you know, her helicopter squadron, that's kind of the paint scheme. So yeah, it's kind of fun. So the ultimate thing is when I can take it down to San Diego and somehow get it on base and maybe roll up to her squadron and, you know, see her shop.
Oh, that'll be so cool.
Right? They'll lose their shit. Well, some of the, you know, there's actually some almost we'll see some MCs down there that rotate around what she does. So it'll be kind of fun because they have their own clubhouse now, and to kind of roll up to the clubhouse and, you know, representing, you know, Jake's bike with the whole paint scheme and all that. Anyway, it's kind of fun to ride it down the road though.
The thing I wanted to point out that is kind of cool, I mean, you know, I've watched your progress as a rider and as a wrencher and a builder now, and seeing these kind of these marks. And one of the things that you're, I think, just getting past right now is, for anyone who's wrenching, there's a point where you don't trust your work. You don't trust that you got everything or you did everything right. And for a lot of people, that's why they don't wrench themselves. They don't trust. They rather have a professional do it. But then sometimes you learn that like the professional is like the 17-year-old kid on the weekend whose job it is to change tires or something. And you have to remember that maybe he's got a date that night, or maybe it's, something's going on. Maybe he's got a flu or whatever, or as Emma would say at some of the factories, if it's on a Friday, you don't want a bike that was built on a Friday.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on with that person and how much they're paying attention, because their life is not on the line, yours is. And how we say, you are the one to trust.
Right.
And that's the thing that a lot of people don't trust themselves. And I hear you say that, but I know that this bike is part of that, you learning that you can trust yourself.
Yeah. And I can, you know what, I'll give credit to where credit's due, or YouTube videos. So, you know what, when you're doing something, watch the videos. It's super helpful. And then the other thing is just be patient. And understand that a 15 half hour minute, job, it's going to be all day. Just know that. Yeah. I mean, those are kind of the big takeaways for me. And, and the last one, it kind of plays in today. If something's not going in or it's not fitting right, then something's not working correctly, then try something different. There's so many times where I'm trying to get a wheel on or a brake caliper on or whatever it might be. And I know everybody knows the exact same thing. And if you just put it down and walk away and say, I'm going to just try something different, that was a huge learning lesson, because I thought everything, I should just do it right the first time. And it's like, no, man, you're going to do this so many times. And once you kind of make peace with that, then it becomes more enjoyable. I mean, I'm fortunate. I do this for, this is my relaxation, my moment of Zen. So I can rebuild a brake caliper over a weekend, but I've learned, like, just know it's going to take a lot longer than you think, and be patient with yourself. And I think understand what you are as a person. Like, I'm not Emma, I'm not Mike. I don't have that skill set or that focus to knock something out in a weekend. I'll do it. Some people do over a couple of, what Emma might do in a couple of days or Mike might do in a couple of weeks, I'll do in like 6 or 7 months. So I think, if you're doing it for fun, make sure you're doing it for fun, and try to have as much fun as you can, on the emotional roller coaster.
Yeah. No, I get it. And that's why for me, like the XS 750 that sits in the garage, it gets pulled out once a year to ride. And I'm sure people look at that and like, it's just an old bike with kind of a crappy paint job, But to me, I look at it and there's all these little triumphs for me on it. There's things I figured out, things I learned. It's so much more to me. I'm happy with it just sitting there because it represents things that I figured out and learned and did and accomplished. And you're going through that now. And I think you're getting that too. Well,
it's kind of like where success will build on itself. Like, it was really important for me. I just want to hear it run, right? I just want to have it know it's feasible, that this thing will actually go down the road again. And now that it does, and I rode it home, now it's like, okay, now I want to kind of start, like Emma was saying, kind of start at the front and then keep going through it again and really sort things out. Right now that I know it's actually going to see the road again, now I'll just walk through it again piece by piece and sort it out better.
Trust me, Jim. You achieved a major hurdle yesterday and today. That is a major, major hurdle. Hearing that thing run yesterday, huge hurdle. Riding at home today, even higher hurdle. So it's all gravy from this point. It's not going to be quick, but
no, but that's part of the learning, right? It's just patience. Chuck, and it is humbling, right? I think anyone knows. I mean, you're wrenching on motorcycles is humbling.
Well, and the other thing that we were kind of touching on earlier was one of the other skill sets that you're just getting into is metalworking. You've learned how to weld. I mean, not good welding, but weld. You can put metal together. You've learned a little bit about shaping sheet metal, which is a different type of thing. But you can now kind of bend and shape and grind and weld and fabricate. Welcome to fabricating. Now this kind of opens up so many things. Like, you don't like where that battery box is, you now have enough of the skill set to move it. And that's something that many other people couldn't even comprehend doing. Yeah. And that just opens up so many more worlds. The only downside to the kind of project that you're doing is that by the time you figure something out and finish it, you've learned how to do it better.
Oh, yeah.
I bet you, I know. I mean, Rick and Emma, Emma does like top stuff. But Emma, I'm going to guess even on the bikes that you're building, by the time you're done, there are things on there you could do better.
Oh God, yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like
Because,
it's like a never-ending.
because
It's like Sisyphus,
right, the project is developing as you build it.
Right.
So let's say you start off. Let's take the Trident.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing I did on the Trident was build the engine. So build the engine. And then I built the bike around it. And when I built the engine, my vision for the Trident actually was quite a different direction to the one it ended up in, which is unusual for me because normally I just follow that direction. But I actually changed. And so when I actually rode it, for the first time, I realized that now the engine was the weakest part of the build. So I had to go back and redo the engine.
Bring it up to snuff.
To bring it up to snuff. And so now I've got the cams in it, and now I've got the pistons in it, and everything's kind of where it should be. But even now, as nice as that bike is, I could point every flaw out in it.
That's almost the worst part sometimes of knowing exactly every little, I don't want to say corner you cut, but every maybe compromise. Or,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you didn't feel like busting out the welder, so you notched this thing and got around it. And then that thing
exactly.
Every time you see it, you're going to go, no, that master cylinder shouldn't be crooked because I was a lazy dum-dum, and that thing's going to kick your ass. But that's why we all have the disease. That's part of it. The joke is it ever done? Have you ever looked at any motorcycle you haven't been like, hell yeah, every doodad, I'm done, it's perfect? No, that's stupid.
There are a few times when I've come close. But
Sure, totally. Well, and that's what Emma was saying, that vision changes,
Yeah.
So even when you're done with version A, version B is already keeping you up at night.
Or you think of one more thing. Oh, I could do this, Yep.
Yeah.
And our taste change. I mean, the fact of the matter is the bikes I was building at 20 are very, very different to the bikes I'm building at 59. And that doesn't necessarily mean that my skills have just got 39 years more refined. It means that my actual tastes have changed. It's just like they change in music. When you're young, you listen to death metal. And as we get older, I mean, I used to listen to heavy metal all the time. Now I tend to listen to jazz. And
you made a chopper out of a GT750 too. So
that was a pub bet. But our taste in music change, our taste in food change. If you'd have asked me at 20 that I'm going to be sitting listening to Dave Brubeck and eating gourmet Italian food, I'd have laughed in your face. I mean, I was listening to heavy metal and pushing hamburgers in my face. So we're changing as people.
What would Lemmy think?
Taste change.
Emma, you got to be careful. Jazz is a slippery slope into opera and classical. You're turning old before us. I mean,
no, I'll never listen. No, I'll never listen to that muck.
Okay.
Emma, you have a bass in the garage, don't you?
What's that?
You still have a bass around, don't you?
Oh yes.
You need to be making your own noodling. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
So, I said it was a good day in the garage. Here's another reason it was a good day. There were no dead bikes. Emma, you didn't have to tell anyone their bike was dead.
Didn't kill anyone's bikes.
That's good.
I was worried. A bunch of Suzuki showed up. I'm like, uh-oh.
That's right. And one of them was John Dalton's boy. Lucky John Dalton.
Yeah. Right.
Didn't his last bike catch on fire while he was riding it?
That was it was a very, very sad state of affairs. His poor BMW.
And another great thing that happened this weekend, I was on I'm on the next Cleveland Moto podcast.
Oh, hey.
Oh, really?
That's right. As Phil said, he came in my shed and stole another Misfit. It was me.
I have questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. A lady in blue. Go ahead.
How drunk did they get?
Yeah, I think Steve Hoffert will probably remember the show. He didn't fall. This is what I use as a test. He didn't fall off his stool.
That's good.
Okay.
And he wasn't snoring?
No, but he was sitting next to Johnny Mack, who may have been propping him up. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was good. But we talked in detail about AMA Vintage Days.
Hey,
Yes.
because that is
And-
happening apparently, right?
It is happening. Well, no, maybe, but
Maybe.
It's kind of
it's still likely. But we were talking about the hypothetical that, assuming it is happening, what it's going to be like and what opportunities are there for us. I mean, assuming that it's going to be less people right away, less people, less vendors, less all the things, right? To me, then that's going to be more opportunity to watch more of the racing, because I'm always like, there's so much going on. I rarely get to see any of the racing. So doing more than the racing. And I have a brilliant idea I'm working on that may or may not involve Evel Knievel stunt cycles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had the idea of bringing a bunch of those and setting up like a play area and selling them.
Well, that's vending, right?
I could sell a bunch of them there.
Yeah, but you could.
I could.
I was thinking you were going to have like a contest or something, like who could have like the longest jump.
Exactly. Well, either way, I thought it'd be fun to set up a stunt cycle play area.
Hell yeah.
I think you should just give away 100 of them. Just give them away. Just let people go crazy. It'd be a hoot.
Well, actually, we might as well get to that, because it's the Evel Knievel contest.
Ooh.
And we had so many submissions. We had poems, we had haikus and limericks and songs.
Had non-haikus.
There were songs and so many things. Let's see. We have winners.
Excellent.
Emma.
Yes,
I
darling.
sent you an email.
You did. Yes, you
And
did.
there's 3 parts, so you have to make sure you read them in the right order. And so we are about to announce the winners. First of all, I want to thank everybody for sending in their submissions. We did a poetry slam at the garage today. We were all taking turns reading them and enjoying. And there's one, as you get that ready, there's one I would like to share. This was a song that came without music. And so I thought, I can do this. I got this, right? I can. Who needs music? I got it.
What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, evil, evil. Oh, evil, evil. The world looks askance at Evel Knievel as a crazy ass yank with an unseemly urge to abandon all logic and good sense and physics and fly on XR like a cast iron, but in spite of spectacular fail jumps, crashes that madman could draw an incredible throng. You think that was stupid? Yo, he sold tons of tickets. Come on, man, tell me Evel was wrong. What do you guys think of that? It goes on and on and on. Fly Evel one more time.
So I will say, Liza, you're one of the best karaoke people I know. That was probably your worst karaoke performance ever.
Wow.
That's a bitchin' song, though.
Oh, Evel, Evel.
Bitchin' song, though.
They were going to the Spice Girls, weren't they?
That's pretty
Well done, though.
weird.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know
It's all
my pop
right.
music.
It's all right.
Well performed.
My bad.
But we do have some other winners, and Emma, you have.
I've got
No, I got her. So
Ooh,
in
yum.
third place,
that's roast pork loin, darling.
in third place, and this one was a late entry, just in time, and this one is from Garrett Jones. Congratulations, Garrett Jones! You are winning an Evel Knievel stunt cycle.
Yes, you are,
All
Garrett.
right.
And this is his poem. There once was a man named Knievel whose style and showmanship had no equal. He rode with the pseudonym Evel and was an expert in new panties retrieval.
Oh my God.
Attaboy.
You like that one?
Enjoy your Evel Knievel stunt cycle, sir.
There were so many good ones, you guys. We had so much fun. Now, Emma, yours, we actually read one of the verses last week, but he came back with more verses, and I think
He did, and this
is what clinched it for second place.
This is
Wow.
this is from Gwyn, and Gwyn lives in Newcastle, New South Wales, which of course is in the Antipodes, darling. However, I suspect Gwyn is originally from the British Isles. He certainly talks like it. Here we go. Are you ready, children?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then we'll begin. Evel once took the long ride to Throgmorton, which transformed his long schlong to a short un. To make up for that, he behaved like a twat and farted like a 650 Norton. Verse 2. From Throgmorton he rode on to Stoke, his short schlong still seeking a poke. He found a young filly to ride on his willy, and he delivered that vinegar stroke. So,
Oh my God.
so old Evel returned in 10 bits, broken arms and a severed left tit, to the recycle garage for Miss Emma's massage, and he remains to this day a misfit.
Aww.
It's just absolutely wonderful. And because I got a
Wow.
mention in it, the highest accolade available.
Okay, I would like to make a couple of asterisks for this
Yes.
because I was at the garage listening in on most. Actually, I did vote. I think apparently on most of these. There's really not much scientific reasoning behind any of the voting.
Science.
And secondly, Emma, I think you had a voting scale of 1 in 10. What was the criteria on that?
Well, no, if I was mentioned in it or Liza was insulted, he'd get 10. Everybody else got 1.
Oh no.
Oh, you want me to read that one? The other one that you like? This one is one of the runners up. This one is from Thomas Williams. There once was a man named Evel. His ways were a tad primeval. He jumped a bike, Liza's a dyke. And when he passed, the world was in upheaval.
Not one for the woke generation, I should say.
Apparently, I'm part of that woke generation.
Oh, my word.
Timing is charming.
But for first place.
He does not get a stunt cycle, but it was
No,
effort
actually,
nonetheless.
no, he doesn't get a stunt cycle. For first place, and this one I think was clear amongst.
Oh, there was no question. Because the rhyming couplet, it's a masterpiece. It really is a masterpiece.
Well, not just that. I think the most work went into this because
I kind of agree.
Did he write the lyrics? He recorded an entire song.
No,
So-
it was awesome. How many times did we listen to this today?
Oh,
So many
over and over
times.
again.
We had a dance party at the garage.
So
Wow.
Multiple.
just for Bagel and Rick, who haven't heard this yet, I mean, this has got a very Beck flair about it. It's tune turntables on a microphone.
Get
I
crazy
think
with the
is-
cheese whiz.
Yes.
So
Mama's got a wooden leg with a kickstand.
I'm going to say congratulations, Ian Vanek. You are our winner. And not only are you going to get the Evel Knievel stunt cycle, but Emma is going to put something personal in the package to send.
I am
you.
indeed. And Ian Vanek.
Your choices are leopard skin print panties, a side boob photo, or Emma, what's the other option?
Slightly used airbox.
A slightly peed in airbox, or
Could save you
Faint scent
hundreds
of
of
urine.
dollars.
Oh, go.
Emma's choice if you dare.
Ooh,
Emma's choice if you dare.
Ooh.
So it could be anything. It could be anything. But Ian Vanek, if you remember right, has visited the the garage, and he had a Suzuki DR125, which I think had the rustiest tank I have ever seen. So, yes, well done, Ian.
But he can write a hell of a song.
It's an extraordinary effort.
It's a full song. I'm going to play some of it right now, and then
play the whole thing.
I'm going to play the whole thing at the end. But let's play some of it right now. I've been having fun with this.
That's
dance party.
Oh yeah.
That's you can't escape from that.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. Hey! You have reached this recording in error. Please check the number and try your call again.
Crash landed on his Harley Davidson. He's the pride of Moses Lake, Washington. And the risks that he did take, they was many and they was great. And the legs that he did break, not for nothing that shit weren't fake. That Snake River and his soaked liver. That Snake River and his soaked liver. Flying over buses, Lord knows you can trust us. We're flying over buses, Lord knows you can trust us. Well, I could spit further than she could jump. Well, I could spit further than she could jump. Crash landing.
Oh yeah!
Oh!
Look at that! Oh my God! There's naked men.
There's multiple naked men.
Tim, if we ever get the same area code, I will bail you out of jail.
Dance off, pants off.
Wow!
What swayed it for us? And there was never any question. I mean, the first time I heard it, what swayed it for us is Snake River and soaked liver.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Fucking hilarious.
It's a masterpiece.
Prolific,
Hilarious.
exemplary use of the.
Oh, and come back, Rick. Come back. Say it again. What was an example of?
Exemplary use of the English language.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Ian, for that. And thank you, everyone who submitted. I even read one of them on the Cleveland Moto podcast. So tune in there to find out which one got read.
Very nice.
Oh, I know. Emma.
Yes, darling.
Shop update.
Oh, okay.
You got the keys. Like, we want to know what's going on.
No, I didn't get the keys.
What?
No,
Do you need us to pick a lock, possibly? Because we've got your back.
no, nothing like that. It was it was a slight miscommunication between me and the owner of the building. And the room is basically ready. I asked for an empty room, and that's exactly what I got. And I didn't actually want it painted because the painting is on my dime. I'm basically, because it's a single room, it's 20 feet wide and 40 feet long. It's actually a little bigger than I thought, which unfortunately means the rent's a little more than I thought, but that's just maybe. But I want to go in and paint it like a commercial kitchen, so everything is going to be gloss white. That's the ceiling, the walls, and I'll do a light grey on the floor.
Is that because it's easier to wipe the blood off?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for the designated crying area, I'll have the taped off corner. But the back wall is brick, and that's fine. The left wall is tin, as is the ceiling, and that's fine. But the remaining wall is just bare studs, and the back of the wall in the next unit. And I said, no, I don't want that. I want a smooth, so you can plywood it or drywall it. I don't want it painted, but you got to do that. And he said, okay, yeah. So it was just a miscommunication. That's not going to actually entitle me to. I can move in, but I still can't do business because I'm at the bureaucratic stage now where I'm waiting on various permits. You can't just say, I'm opening a bike shop. and do it, you actually need a license from the Bureau of Automotive Repairs. And in order to get that license, you have to prove a number of things. But more importantly, you have to prove you have a plan of dealing with hazardous waste. And then you get granted your hazardous waste disposal license. Then you present that number to the Bureau of Automotive Repairs with all the other things they want. And they grant you the Bureau of Automotive Repair license. And this is the one that you frame and put on the wall. And then when you have the Bureau of Automotive Repair license, then the city, in my case, the city of Marina, will grant you your business license, and you can actually hang your name above the door and start advertising and going about your business. So the reality is I may be going in tomorrow. I may be going in the following Monday. It all depends how long it takes my landlord to hang the drywall. In any case, I'm probably not going to be open for business for at least 8 weeks.
Oh,
Just because of bureaucracy. Now, can I have a party there with all my friends? Of course I can. You know, can I kit it out and hang all the artwork up and get it exactly how I wanted? Of course I can.
well,
What
yeah,
I
you got to set it all up. Like, did you ever get the tire machine working?
well, the time machine's still sitting in storage.
Yeah, so you got a lot of work to do.
So I've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
I've still got to come up. I'm going to be a Parts Unlimited wholesaler.
Mm-hmm.
And Parts Unlimited are great because they have everything. They do everything. They do tires. They do Harley Davidson parts. They do
Tools.
Yuasa batteries. They do everything you want except for OEM parts. Parts Unlimited have. I mean, I'm sure, Rick, you've got Parts Unlimited account at your place.
Of course. We use it every day. They ship out of Reno, about 100 miles away from my shop.
So it's perfect. However, what people don't realize, in order to discourage people from having a Parts Unlimited account if you're just a member of the public, not only do you have to prove you're a legitimate business, it's about an $8,000 buy-in. So in order to get that account, you have to order about $8,000 retail worth of stuff in one go.
Wow.
And then you'll get the account. So, that's quite a lot of stock.
So we should start making our list at the shop, huh?
Well, if you want to make a list of higher, big ticket items, I'm happy to accommodate you at very favorable prices.
Jim, just go ahead and make that list of all the tires you need for the next 2 years. That should be half of her budget.
Yeah, right. That'll help.
However, I'm actually buying some quite posh equipment. I'm buying a very, very high-tech tire balancer.
Nice.
Simply because, the big dealership in Monterey, they're still using an old Coates, which is a very, very high-quality machine, but it isn't even motorized. You've still got to spin it by hand. And I messed around with that thing for years, and it kind of has its moments. And then every other bike shop is balancing tires by just, putting them on a tire trimming machine and, doing them by hand. And that's a very good method for doing it. If you go and have tires put on at a track meet, that's how they're going to do it. But what my grand plan is, I'm going to have this super accurate motorized balancing machine. You slap the wheel on, you clamp it in the jaws, hit the button, it spins it up, tells you exactly what weight is needed where. It's accurate to within like 1/10 of a gram. So that is really going to be a selling point. Yes.
Pull your mic up a little bit. It's rubbing on the cable.
Yeah, there you go. So, and that's like $3,500 just in itself.
That's almost half of your buy-in. So maybe
right, exactly. So
between
and I've got
and a shit pot of tires and fluids,
and point of sale items and stuff like that.
Helmets.
And I know he listens to the show. So I have to mention, I have a benefactor, and He's very well known in the motorcycle industry. He's an absolute, he may be one of the sweetest guys I know. And it is none other than Rob Talbot.
Oh, wow.
Yay, Rob.
Rob wrote me an extremely generous check
Wow.
yesterday.
Excellent.
Really an eyebrow raising check. And it's not a loan, it's a gift. And it's a gift because in Rob's eyes, me opening a shop is of benefit to all motorcyclists in the greater Monterey area. And he wants to be a part of it. No, not in terms of I'm a partner of the shop, but you know,
come along. Yeah.
Rob's really devoted his life to motorcycling. And the only thing that really separates us and him is Rob is extremely wealthy and we're not. We're all broke. But otherwise, he's a biker down to his bootlaces, and he loves the community. And you know, you're talking, I mean, the guy's in his 70s now. He's been dicking around with motorbikes for 60 years. And
Well,
so
and I think a connection he has or reason to keep you around is Rob loves a good barn find. And Rob finds great barn finds, and not just anybody can restore these things, because sometimes they're Italian, sometimes they're British, sometimes they're Japanese. But they're all bikes worth pulling out of a barn and restoring, and not just anyone can do that. So I think he has a vested interest in keep you in the neighborhood.
No, absolutely. But nevertheless, it was a wonderful, generous offer. I mean, I actually shed a tear over it when I got home last night. I mean, you know, when I'm in public, I try to appear like Dr. Spock of Star Trek, you know, just no emotion. But it was a genuinely touching thing. So if you're listening to the show, Rob, thank you, darling. It really means a great deal to me. And it's just great. But, you know, I work on anything. I mean, if you look in my garage right now, I have the tiniest Honda 50 child's motorcycle right up to a Vincent Black Shadow in for an engine build. So, you know, that's and everything in between.
Yeah, not to mention the pink Honda Goldwing with a Mitsubishi turbo.
Yes. And so hang on, let's walk out into the garage because I want to show you guys something.
We're going for a walk. All right. Just so you know, we've got 7 minutes till you turn into a pumpkin.
Okay.
I'll tell you a quick Rob Talbot story. So Rob's museum is out on Carmel Valley Road, right? Which is a beautiful road, beautiful, and it leads to a lot of fun things. I still find myself, because it's a nice break point between Santa Cruz and parts unknown, to take a break. And right next to Rob Talbot's museum is that little grocery store, country store.
Yeah. And the deli in the back.
It's like a habit. Whenever I roll into Carmel Little Village, I park, and even though it's closed now, the museum's closed because of the COVID, I park in his little driveway. I go to the market, get some sandwiches, and I sit in his driveway and eat a lunch. So even now, Rob, thank you for providing a respite.
So,
what is
what's that, Emma?
So this little darling is a 1965 Yamaha GT80. It's a tiny little 80cc two-stroke single.
Ooh.
Wow.
But I want to show you something, and I'm actually going to put the computer on the floor because it's a two-hand job.
Yeah, there we go. The podcasts are really going to appreciate the visual.
Well, you're going to hear it.
Be descriptive.
So, I've just turned the petcock on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to turn the ignition on. Now, remember, this is an 80cc two-stroke. Are you ready to have your mind blown?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's electric start.
Really? Oh, wow.
1965. It's an 80cc bike.
Wow.
And I think it was it a couple of weeks ago we were talking about the dyno starters.
Yes.
It's the dynamo that turns into a starter. Well, this bike actually has one.
Nice.
And the way we can tell is if we zoom in on the engine, from the side it looks quite normal. But when we zoom around, look how big that casing is.
Giant can.
That's like 6 inches sticks out.
Yeah. But from the side, it looks quite normal. And that's the dyno starter.
Yep.
So it serves as a dynamo and a starter. Now, Bagel has one on his scooter.
My 1965 Heinkel, as a matter of fact.
But that's quite a larger machine. That's a 250 four-stroke.
175, but yeah, it's more than twice as big.
Whereas this is a tiny little two-stroke. And as you can see, it's quite adorable. And it's got a little speedometer like a clock.
Yep.
And then
the red paint.
Yeah, and that red paint. If we turn it on, you can see it lights up like a little Christmas tree.
It's got the Honda Dreamy vibe going on a bit. Those polished tanks.
And I love those oval or the elliptical speedometers that the old Yamahas used to have.
I want one of those. That looks fun.
It's got dirt bike bars. I'm in.
It's absolutely classic 1960s Japanese styling.
Yeah.
The gas tank that is taller at the rear and tapers towards the front. And then, what shape would you say those knee grips are? They're like parallelogram shape, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of the Honda Dream.
It's got that kind of vibe to it, hasn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And the little round airbox with the chrome end caps, it's just... And single seat, the seat is up the upholsterer now, but it's got a single seat with a carrier on the back.
Nice. And it's got a monocoque frame, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's got the monocoque frame. So there's no tubes in the frame. And the spine here, it's got a spine in front of the engine, but this is really fake. This doesn't do anything. They actually put this on for America to make it look a little more conventional. If you were to see this bike in its home country, this is missing. And it looks a lot more...
Looks like a moped.
It's got that kind of vibe. But I mean, just look at the size of that engine case.
Yeah.
And, they really didn't trust... Oh, I ought to show you the other side. You see, it's got a nice high exhaust system on it.
Ooh, little scrambler.
Heat shield.
Yeah, a little street scrambler style.
Yeah.
And then it's got little features that I like. Like this is the oil bag. And what I'm doing now is I'm undoing this knob because the seat sits over the top of the filler for the two-stroke oil. So what Yamaha did was they provided you with this hand wheel. And so you undo this hand wheel right here.
4 days later.
And then the tank just pivots out enough.
What?
And fill up the oil.
So you don't have to take the seat off.
You don't have to take the seat off. It just
made to service? That is preposterous.
Pivots out. And then you've got a little window here, which shows you when the window's dark, you've got two-stroke oil. When it goes pale, you need to fill it up.
Yep.
And you can see that they put a kickstart on it just in case.
Sure.
But of course, the dyno starters were very, very reliable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But isn't that adorable? And we'll go down the line. So everyone knows Rufus.
Hello, Rufus.
And then there's the turbo.
Turbo.
Nice.
The Guzzi, of course, which everybody knows. Purple Trident.
Ooh, yeah.
The Vincent Black Shadow, which is now in pieces. And you can see what's interesting about this is you don't take the engine out of the frame. You lift the frame off the engine.
Right.
And then here's a 1968 BSA 441.
What a good-looking bike.
Isn't that great?
That guy Jim that showed up at the garage had a 441, didn't he?
He had a 441 back in the day.
Thank you for reminding me. Shout out to Jim too, as I was calling him.
And then, as you can see, I've got a lot of my shop accoutrements in. This is my counter. And then this is my showcase.
What's this little
car
you got in there?
It's a little child's car.
That's cool.
And then behind that, of course, my lathe, which I know Rick is terribly jealous of.
I only had to help you move it once, which made me extra jealous.
Right. And then you want to see my drill? Now that's a drill.
Ooh.
You call that a drill?
Well, that's a drill.
Now that actually started off as a 220-volt three-phase, and I put this giant... This is a 5 horsepower, 110-volt motor that I actually rigged on the back. So now you can run it on 110.
So you can drill for oil in your backyard.
Exactly. And then I've got my pressure wash and my compressor and all kinds of other things. And Barry.
Ah,
Barry's looking for a home to go.
in the shop.
I don't really have. I don't have room on a wall.
We love Barry.
So there's a quick tour of Emma's garage. You know, unfortunately, as you can see, my garage is quite full. I really need to move into the new place because my garage is full of stuff.
Well, I'll tell you what you really need to do, Emma. You really need to get back into your room and get sitting down because we have some more people joining us, and I'll tell you why.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for many people know, big shout out to our Patreon subscribers. And there's
who are the best?
certain people at the Ask Miss Emma level where they get to ask Miss Emma a question, and she spends a lot of time. I watch these email conversations, and she will spend a lot of time being thorough and replying to people, unlike me, who's just like, sounds great.
Well,
she's put a lot of time into it, but she's been so busy because of the shop project, she hasn't been able to get back to people. So I said, tell you what, I figured out how to solve the problem. I'm just going to invite them on the show. They can ask their questions here live in person with Miss Emma and get their answers now. What do you guys think about that? So, hey, we got Chris, Ethan, and Gary. How y'all doing? And, Ethan, you got bikes back there. What is that, a 550?
450.
Oh.
Yeah.
hello, Ethan.
Hello,
darling. I know that. Look at that handsome 450, and Ethan's got some great questions, which I confess I actually read about 2 weeks ago, and I'm desperately sorry, Ethan. I've been so busy with my shop. But we're going to answer your questions right now.
Ooh,
Let's go down the line. So we've got Ethan with his glorious 450, which is a wonderful thing. That bike has got the longest cam chain in history.
So this is your chance, Ethan. And hey, thank you guys for joining us, and thank you for being patient. We can get your answers now. So Ethan, do you want to just ask it, or do you want us to read your email? How do you want?
Sure, I'm happy to ask it. Yeah.
Please do, Ethan. How can I help you, darling?
Yeah, well, and it's funny you say that about the cam chain because I have dealt with dropping that thing down a couple times, and that is a pain to get up. It's quite deep in there.
Yes.
But so yeah, my question has two parts, and they both are kind of based around this 450. So this 450 is special to me because it's 1970,
Yes.
and it's the same year as my first motorcycle that my shop teacher in high school got me for like $300, which was a gold CB 200T. So it has a lot of sentimental value. This kind of bike.
Well, you got a little more power there, darling.
A little more, yeah. It's a fun bike, but so. When I so I'm going to turn 30 this coming summer, and to kind of celebrate, I wanted to take this 450 on a long journey.
Okay.
Wow.
And it's been a while since I did a long motorcycle trip.
Okay.
But I wanted to take this one on, and the last long trip I took on it, I ran out of oil in the middle of the Nevada desert.
Okay.
Toasted my top end. So 3 years later, I've rebuilt the engine and trying to get it back going. So the two questions I have are, the first question is sort of micro, and the second question is macro.
Okay.
And the macro question is, what should, vintage bikes, what should I think about? And what should I focus on replacing or repairing in preparation for a 5,000 mile trip, which is kind of the length that I'm hoping to go on this 50-year-old bike.
Can I ask the obvious question?
Yes.
Why are you doing this big trip on a 50-year-old bike?
That's a lousy question, Liza.
It's my 30th birthday.
Everyone wants to know.
Irrelevant.
No, that's a lousy question. And your micro question, Ethan?
The micro question is, I have a it doesn't have very much power in the low end, like beneath 4,000 RPMs. I mean, I've gone through everything, checked, the carbs, blah blah blah, everything. I've rebuilt the whole engine, and it still sputters and low power beneath 4,000 RPM. And
so it's actually got a misfire to it.
It feels like it. It feels like it.
It's like maybe holding back. Okay.
Yes.
So
yes, holding back.
Let's deal with a misfire first. If we go back to basics, The three things an engine needs to be sufficient. It needs compression, and compression on your bike should be at least 160 psi.
Okay.
At least. So crank it, get the engine nice and hot, take the spark plugs out, hold the throttle wide, get your compression meter in. It should show 160 psi on both cylinders. No more than 10 psi difference between the two. If your left one's at 140 and your right one's at 160, that could drastically affect it. The second thing it needs are decent sparks. And sparks at the right time. Now, do you still have points on it or an electronic ignition?
I am points.
Good.
It's like this thing's stock, bone stock.
Absolutely, and that is the way to be, because points will always get you home. If your electronic ignition, especially an aftermarket one, fails, you're dead. I stick with points. Most of my bike restorations have got points on them. The Trident still has its points, and so on and so forth.
So should he put an emery board in his tool bag?
Well, CB450 points are quite interesting because they're double sprung, and they're the same points that you put in a Honda Goldwing, so they're easy to find. And they're exactly the same points, but the Honda Goldwing ones are single sprung and the 450 ones are double sprung. The reason why I'm telling Ethan this is because they look the same. Somebody may have put single sprung Goldwing points in yours. And if they are, it will give exactly the symptoms you describe. So what you need to do is you need to go under the point cover and actually look at the main springs for the point.
Okay.
If it's single, you've got Goldwing points in there. Chuck them out. And if it's double, you've got the right points. So let's go over some numbers. Your point should be set to 15 thousandths of an inch. Don't talk to me in metric. I'm just 15 thousandths of an inch for your points, and your plugs should be set to 25 thousandths of an inch. These are critical numbers.
Are y'all just taking in the fact that she just knows all these numbers off the top of her head? I'm just always blown away.
I'm always blown away, but it never surprises me, but it always surprises me.
So 15,000 for your points, 25,000 for your plugs.
You mean like the spark gap?
Yes.
Okay.
25,000 for the spark plug gap, 15,000 for the point gap. Now, you need, generally, when you look at the points plate on your bike, you're going to see a little mark with a little round piece, which is at 12 o'clock. And it corresponds with a mark on the engine. If your points are set to 15 thousandths when they're fully open, generally that should be about right for your timing. Now, remember, your timing you set under the left-hand circular engine case, and it's on the F mark. And you should always set it with a strobe.
Okay, I've never done that, so.
It's the easiest thing in the world. Go down to AutoZone. They've got stroboscopic lights down there for $20. It's called an inductive pickup. There's a clamp that clamps over the high tension lead.
Yeah.
You put, there's 3 points of contact with a stroboscopic light. It actually looks like a ray gun. You have a clamp which goes over your high tension lead, and you're going to want to do the left and the right.
Okay.
And then there's a clamp for the positive and the clamp for the negative on your battery. And then you just pull the trigger and point it at the timing marks with the engine running. Now, there's going to be oil flowing around a little bit, but don't worry. Just put a tray underneath it. It'll be just fine. So take the big round case off at the bottom of the engine with the 3 screws, tray underneath because it'll drip a bit of oil, fire the bike up and check the timing. There's 2 things that should happen. When you pull the trigger at idle, the F mark should line up. When you rev it, you will see 2 marks that are kind of on their own. These are your full advance marks, and it should go to a full advance setting.
Right.
So here's reasons why your bike could splutter. at low speed. You could have the wrong spark plug gap. You could have the wrong points gap. Your timing could be wrong. The mechanism that actually makes the points cam advance and retard, which is kind of bob weights and springs, that might be kind of old and hokey, and it might not be retarding down to the number you need. It might not be going back to the F mark. It might be staying at an advanced mark, which again would cause poor running. And the other thing about 450s, they've got CV carburetors, but they're made by a company called Cahin. And Cahin don't put rubber diaphragms. They always used an aluminum diaphragm. And it's a critical sized component. And what you need to do is got to make sure it moves up and down in that carburetor freely. And if they stick, you got trouble, because the bike will still idle and it'll run, because it's the butterfly that your throttle cable operates that's actually making it accelerate and decelerate. But if one slide's stuck up and the other one's stuck down because of gum, you'll get kind of backfiring and hesitation at low speed.
Okay.
So your friend there is a sonic cleaner, which again, you can get a sonic cleaner from Harbor Freight these days for less than $100.
Well, I got my work ahead of me. Thank you so much.
Now, I'm going to get to your second question. How do I prepare for a 5,000-mile trip on a 50-year-old bike, 51-year-old bike? And the simple answer is you don't. You can.
I was worried that was going to be the answer. I knew it was going to be the answer.
Look,
and a debit card.
But here's the deal. Your Honda 450 and Rick's Harley Davidson, my Trident, Liza's KTM or Africa Twin are made up of tens of thousands of individual components. And simply testing every single one of them is not practical. So what do we do? What makes us so we're not scared to leave the house every day? Well, let's look at your history on the bike. You ran the bike out of oil. So you know that on an older bike, particularly at freeway speeds, oil consumption could be a problem. Not going to run it out of oil again, are you?
Never.
Right. Wheel bearings, when things get old, wheel bearings can dry out. If you're comfortable pulling the wheels off and just pushing a little bit of, get the wheels out, flip out the dust seals out of the wheel bearings, stuff a bit of fresh grease in there, put everything back. It's really a half an hour job. Make sure the chain is lubricated and adjusted. Make sure the tires are fresh. And when I say fresh, I mean less than a decade old. Really, a shop isn't allowed to sell tires when they get more than 5 years old. They're safe actually for another 5 years. But if they're older than 10, throw them away. You're obviously good at working on your own bike. So silly things, oil fresh, spark plugs fresh, make sure the air filter is fresh. These are your service items. Make sure the tires are fresh. You've got a disc brake on the front of that bike, flush it. Just get some fresh fluid. Make sure all the fluids are nice. Make sure the tires are fresh. Everything's where it should be. The only adjustment I'd make from stock is we've learned a little bit more about tires than when your bike rolled off the line. So when you read the tire information sticker on the swing arm, it probably says 25 in the front, 28 in the back. And that was great for 1971. 2021, I'd raise them a little bit. Try about 28 in the front, 32 in the rear, about that kind of figure. Late 20s in the front, early 30s in the rear, especially with more modern tires. Other than that, just ride it. And remember, she's a stately old lady.
Well,
Yes.
there is a good point to this though. So he's on the West Coast and he's going south, which is going to put him through Santa Cruz.
Great.
So you may even just want to kind of set small goals. And maybe arrange when you get here that's a time to meet up with Emma and have it gone through and checked.
Right. And I mean, I'm reminded of my dear friends Max and Will, the Canadians, who regularly ride from Manitoba all the way down to Baja, Mexico. And of course, I'm kind of the halfway point. And usually they'll show up and stay for a day or so. And Max will do his laundry and have a shower and a shave. In fact, the last time he arrived, I really didn't recognize him. He looked quite disheveled. And he cleans up very well, Max. He's very, very handsome. But it's a time for just taking a break, doing your laundry, getting a shower and a shave, and checking over your bike. And he was riding the 900 Tiger back then, so we had it up on the center stand in the garage. We're checking everything and just bringing everything back to spec, adjusting that chain, doing the tire pressures. Because remember, Ethan, a lubricated and adjusted correctly chain is far less likely to break than a dry, loose one. A good quality, properly inflated tire is far less likely to have a puncture than a cheap, soft tire. So you can actually, even though I say you can't really prepare, you can deal yourself a good hand. Ultimately, it's the hand of fate that's going to dictate how your trip goes. Yeah. But you can deal yourself a good hand.
Well, that's part of the joy of it, because the last big trip I did was on a KLR 650, and I kind of knew that thing was just going to keep running.
Yeah.
Right. That thing ran for 14,000 miles.
What's the fun in that?
Yeah. Yeah. What's the fun? No, exactly. If I
you are so going to regret that comment. You are going to regret that comment, dude.
Right. But life is an adventure. And, you're 30. What could be better than celebrating your birthday by taking a 5,000-mile trip on a 50-year-old bike? And I guarantee you, when you've completed the trip and you look back on it and you look back at the friends you've made and the old boys you met who's like, oh, God, I had one of those when I was young, and, the wistful look in their eyes, it's going to be the trip of your lifetime, Ethan. It really is. I'm very jealous.
You'll talk about it forever. It'll be in your.
You will have stories to tell. That is the cool part about it. Not to give you a hard time, but
I'll buy the book.
Done, you will have stories to tell. That is a cool fucking trip.
So when is this trip?
I plan to leave later in July. So
okay.
So I got some time to prepare.
But just remember, it's California. The further south you go, the warmer it gets, as you're well aware. And you're riding an air-cooled motorcycle. And Liza's KTM and my lovely Rufus, who are both water-cooled bikes, I vividly remember sitting in rush hour traffic in LA at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and Rufus' temperature gauge is pegged, and the fans are just blowing red-hot air out the gill vents. Liza is like, any minute now, the red light's going to come on the temperature gauge, because she had the bars, and it's like 8 black bars, and then when the red one comes on, the engine shuts down, and it was a solid 8 black bars. So if it's hard on a water-cooled, efficient motorcycle, just remember how hard it's going to be on the 450. The concessions you should make, you're traveling high summer, you're heading south, try and avoid things like rush hour. I mean, you've got no time agenda. Why sit in rush hour traffic in LA when all the schleps are coming home from work? You can be sitting in a coffee bar, enjoying yourself, making new friends. And then when you get on the freeway at 8 o'clock at night, it's still beautifully warm, and you can cover your miles then and give your bike an easier time.
Yeah, that's great advice. I wasn't thinking about that.
Here's some other advice. Watch the Hunter S. Thompson documentary. Hop on your bike at 11 o'clock at night and ride like a banshee out of hell down the Pacific Coast Highway, laughing at fate, laughing at all those things, and have a great fucking time.
On acid.
No, that comes later.
Oh, sorry.
But you don't need a drug when you're on a motorcycle on Highway 1 at night. There's all the drug you can handle.
Yeah,
right
when
there.
your headlight goes out, it'll be so crazy. You'll have a blast.
And the fog sucks in.
All right, and can I give you a backup plan?
Yeah.
I'm going to say I'm all for you attempting this, though. I also know, I mean, the CB450 is one of the harder models to find parts for. So anything could happen. If something happens, my suggestion is your backup plan, so you'll have as much of a adventure. Get a Vespa like Bagel does. Adventure by scooter is actually fun, but they're quite capable. But you feel like this is so wrong, especially on the freeway, these little wheels. Like you still get that, like, oh God, feeling.
Liza!
Little kid fun.
Come on.
No!
What do you mean, no?
I want Ethan to do it on the 450. I think
I said try it. Try it. That's just a backup plan.
Hey, who was the guy we had on, Liza? Because I can't remember things. Who, as a young man,
Twin jet.
Yes, remember this is what this reminds me of, the twin jet story.
Well,
Recount
you
that.
guys actually read my email on that podcast.
Okay.
I had a question about a vintage Yamaha 250, but yeah, I loved that podcast. That was awesome.
No, I'm inspired by your chutzpah.
Ethan, you got to keep us on your schedule.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are 100% on my route. Whether I'm hoping to come by on a Sunday. If I come midweek during the work week, then I'm definitely popping by Emma's new shop. 100%.
And Bagel, he's in Portland.
We'll meet you. Yeah, we'll meet you whenever.
Cool.
And Ethan, are you happy with the advice you got, mate?
Oh, I'm incredibly happy. I'm gonna probably transcribe it and just post it on the wall and pray to it.
Just remember three
YouTube video.
things. Three things. Sparks at the right time, compression, carburation.
Yes.
1, 2, 3. There's your trifecta. If
Yes.
you've got good carburation, if you've got sparks at the right time, it has to be the carburation. If the carburation's great and your compression's great, you got a spark problem.
Yeah.
From your description, I got to be honest with you, I'm leaning to stock carb floats. I think your carb floats, stuck carb slides. I think you've got gummed up carb slides. It's those aluminum slides. They're just critically sized in the carb tops. And they stick at a moment's hesitation. And you really can't tell.
You got to diddle it.
You've got to look, you've got to kind of pull the air filter snorkel off, and you've got to look in there while you're revving the bike and make sure they're going up and down as they should. Or get a little mirror and a flashlight, and you know.
If they're not, what do you clean them or do you replace
Yeah,
them?
you just gotta clean them.
You said use a supersonic cleaner.
You could use a sonic cleaner, but you can just clean them. Carb clean is great, but just get them clean.
Okay.
Because what Honda did was to try and keep everything shiny, they sprayed all the polished parts of the carburetor with like a clear coat.
Yeah.
And so you clean them with carburetor cleaner, and the clear coat goes everywhere, and it kind of gets gummed up inside. So just scrupulously clean. You'll see. But pull off the air filter trunks, get a mirror or whatever, or if you can see inside the carbs with the engine running, all the better. And just make sure the carbs are going up and down as they should.
And as you're working on it, feel free to email Emma, and maybe she'll answer. And if she doesn't, I'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Anybody who's had ongoing things where you ask Miss Emma, I mean, it's not just a one-off deal. You know, I'll come back to you and we'll try different things. I mean, we're learning about this together. I've been around bikes for a long time, but I'm certainly not a motorcycle guru. You know, it's like, try this. It's going to work. Great. It's not going to work. Let's try something else. The one thing I have learned, you're working on a bike that's 21 years older than you are. Patience, dear boy. Patience. You know?
All right.
Thank you so much. That I'm super stoked.
Well, Ethan, thank you for being a supporter on Patreon. We really
that's the most important thing.
All right, we need to get to Gary now because
Gary,
question about triumphs.
Gary,
am I right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Emma knows a little about triumphs.
From what I hear, yes.
Gary,
So
hello, darling.
Hello.
You were so patient, Gary, and I am sorry. I felt we chased you out an hour ago.
no, so I'm on Eastern time, and so
where are you, darling?
in southern Indiana. by Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville,
Have
yeah.
you ever heard the song by Ardeen Taylor, "Indiana Wants Me"? Oh, it's such a good song.
Maybe I have. I don't.
It's from a long
recognize
time
it.
ago. Anyway, you have a Triumph question, darling. Ask away.
Well, so I currently ride a 2016 CB 500X, and
That's
I want to.
great.
Yeah, I like the bike a lot.
Right.
I'm looking at getting something a little bit bigger. Hopefully, something that I can ride some two up with my wife.
Okay.
And so I'm looking at potentially getting a Triumph T100 or T120.
You sure you don't want a CB450? Because apparently you can't do anything on it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a local dealer that's got a 2020 T120 and a 2020 T100.
Okay.
And I was just curious your opinion on those bikes. I was able to test ride the T100, and I enjoyed riding it quite a bit.
You'll like the T120 a lot more.
Okay.
It's got a lot more power. So the Triumphs, it's an interesting bag. I'm always tickled about how well Triumphs are made. They are beautifully finished. I mean, make no mistake, nobody paints gas tanks or chromes like Triumphs. It's just absolutely gorgeous thing. That said, when I worked at the Triumph dealership, I put 8 wiring harnesses on under 500-mile Triumphs because there was a fault with it. And the fault was where the wiring harness kind of snaked around the steering head. The wires got pinched and they were breaking. And the Triumphs were doing weird things, where they're throwing weird codes, and some would put on the check engine light, some just wouldn't run at all. Some, the rev counter and the speedo would be going crazy. And it all depends on how the wires were laid in the harness. However, before I let that put you off, Triumph really stand by these things. And a couple of times I was tearing my hair out with Triumph Technical and saying, look, how do I proceed with this? And he said, look, it's not a problem. You put on as many parts as you want. We will stand behind you 100%. A priority is getting that bike right for the customer. And that's words straight out of Triumph Technical's mouth. So, that was very, very impressive. In the end, the fix, it was the craziest fix. There's a little plastic clip which held the clutch cable very tight against the wiring harness. And Triumph's fix was just a longer bracket that held the clutch cable away. And all those problems went away.
Yeah.
Everything went away for a 10-cent plastic clip, but it took a lot of wiring harnesses to get there. I love them. One of the things, sorry, Jim.
No, I just have a question. Gary. How come you're attracted to that bike for a touring kind of bike for you and your wife? What attracted you to that?
I just like the look of it, honestly.
It's great.
I hear you. It's a great looking bike. Totally. So yeah. Reason enough. I was just kind of curious. So there must be a lot of Harleys and stuff like that out there.
There's a lot of Harleys in this area. A lot of Harleys.
And quite a capable bike. You have to remember that Dan L. Lynn, who's been on our show, may set the record for the longest continuous ride. It's a Guinness World Record on a Triumph.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They are beautiful.
She went up to the Arctic Circle on that.
So Gary, if you like the T100, darling, you're really going to like the T120. A lot more power, a lot more grunt, right where you can use it. And it's got a great exhaust note. Buy new, don't buy used. There's some great deals going around. It sounds like your dealers, pretty straight up. They've got a selection. They're letting you test ride them. It's not as pretty, but before you lay your money down, ride a Tiger 800. Preferably with your missus. You might actually like it more than you think. I know it doesn't look like what your idea. It looks more like your 500X. However, just ride one. You know,
John Liotti came by, I think, with his 800,
Yes.
and it looked like a scalpel. I mean, that looked like a fun bike.
well,
to
you know,
ride.
I like them because, you know, there's a world of adventure bikes out there, of which the CB500X is one of them. Now, that engine comes in a lot of different bikes. And to me, the tragedy of the story is the CB500X, which in my opinion is the best of them. Out of the Rebel 500, out of the CBR 500, out of everything, the naked one and the one with the fairing, the jewel in the crown is the CB500X. But funnily enough, it's the least popular, and I never really understood why. Because it's the best of the bunch by a long chalk. So you obviously like adventure bikes. And it's just, you know, that Tiger 800 is very, very, very capable. It really is very and extremely comfortable. But I understand why you like the T120s. I mean, there isn't a bike on the road that's as handsome as that right now. Simple
Well,
as that.
I'll say the most important thing in this equation is your wife has to be comfortable.
Right.
If you're going to ride two up, make sure she's comfy and having a good time.
Because you know what? You're going to hear all about it if she ain't, my friend.
Yep.
I'm hoping to get that she will get her license and ride with me, so I don't have to ride two up. So.
And hopefully
Be
she
awesome.
she picks a Victory cross country for her motorcycle.
Does anybody still ride Victories?
Yeah.
Oh, we work on them every now and then. Oh yeah, they're out there.
You know, I like them. I mean, I've seen a couple of 8-balls, and I think that's just a good-looking bike. But no, back to Gary's Triumph. Go right ahead. I mean, unless Triumph have gone through a complete metamorphosis in the past couple of years since I worked at a factory dealership, they stand by their product. If there's a problem, generally they try and sort it out as quickly as possible. They're very, very mindful that their bikes are good. And in a sea of Harleys, and I think Rick will stand by this, if you're on a Harley run, there's only a handful of bikes that you're going to get respected on. One, of course, is an Indian. Sometimes a Henderson, you know, one of the newer ones, maybe a Victory, but you always get respect on a Triumph.
Totally.
So, you know, if your local restaurant or pub has a bike night and everyone's on a Harley and you show up on your Triumph, especially a T120, they're not going to give you any problem over it. They're going to be like, nice bike, my friend.
You know, the other bitchin' bike that Triumph makes in that vein, kind of an upright standard, is that Scrambler, that 1200 Scrambler.
Yeah, those are great looking bikes.
That's a great looking bike.
Yeah,
So-
they have one of those as well. Those are nice looking bikes.
But they're
boy.
getting
Olin shocks.
expensive. Yeah,
but it's got all the Olin suspension and everything in that bike.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beaut. We took what's his name, the handsome tall guy. He and I rode up above Big Sur, and he took his 1200, and he ripped on that thing.
Did anybody here see when Guy Martin duplicated the jump out of The Great Escape? And he was on one of those 1200 scramblers. So you got plenty of choices, Gary. I really think you're absolutely on the right track, because we try and make smart decisions with our head, but motorcycles really come from the heart. It's a very, very visceral decision. When you look at that bike, you really need to fall in love with it. And T120s, the T100s, the scramblers, there's a lot to love. You know, when you're walking away from your bike, if you don't turn around and give it a last look, your bike's not handsome enough. And I know you're going to be doing a lot of that with the Triumph.
Yeah, and this is the Bud Eakins edition. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh,
it's a very nice paint job and
nice looking bike.
I'll tell you why the Bonnevilles are on my someday list, because aesthetically they've got this vintage look, and you'd think if it was just about the looks that this is just like to be a cool vintage bike for, you know, the hipsters, but they're extremely capable. And I know people like Dan L, who's done extreme long distance and touring, but I also know people who can ride them very hard and aggressive in the twisties, because they say that they drop into the turns really well. It doesn't look like a touring machine or a sport bike, but it does it. It performs. And that's why I've always gotten that feedback from people. And that's why it's on my someday list. So I think you can't go wrong with one of those bikes.
Oh, I've just looked it up. Oh! Yeah, it's is it white with a candy red top, or is it candy red with a white top?
I'll have to look. The T100 is one way and the 120 is the opposite.
It's a good looking bike. Yeah, absolutely. Good Lord, look at that. Yeah, it looks like the 120 is white with the red top on the tank, and then with white fenders, and the 100 is red with a white top on the tank. But
do it. Do it. Do it.
Get them both. One for you and one for your wife. That's the answer. Get them both.
Do it. Do it.
Liza,
yes, you have permission.
But seriously, Gary, if it's going to, at least at the start, be primarily for you and your wife, buy the 120. Okay. It's not much more money, but it's much more torque.
Okay.
You know, it's worth, I think it's a couple of grand more.
Yeah, I think it's like 1,500 more right now.
Yeah, but it's a lot. You get a lot more than $1,500 worth more bike.
Hey.
Not that T100s are bad. Don't get me wrong. T100 is a great bike, but you know, for $1,500, just lay it down. Get the 120.
You know why? The 120 it goes up to 11.
11. It goes up to 12. That's why it's 120.
Lovely bikes. I am insanely jealous, darling.
And have Gary, fun. Thank you for being a Patreon supporter. We appreciate
thank you.
Thank you.
Are you happy with the answer you got, darling?
I am, yeah.
Send us a picture of you and your wife astride your new Triumph.
All right, will do.
Okay,
nice.
Thank you, darling.
All right, and last but not least, joining us once again, one of our favorites, it's Chris. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Hope everyone else is doing good too.
Oh, hello, darling. Hello.
Emma, I just want to say I am so happy for you and best of luck with your shop. I knew you'll knock it out of the park.
Well, I if I can get through the bloody bureaucracy, I will. But, you know, it's like, and I don't want to hear anybody talking nonsense about California because
California knows how to party.
Hey, listen, this is where I keep all my stuff. So, you know, but yeah, it's frustrating. But the way I look at it is they just want to make sure that you're legit. And you don't want any Tom, Dick, and Harry working on your bike. So if it was easy, all of us would have our own bike shop. So I'm going to focus. What I am very good at doing is listening. And I listen to what people want. I understand what they want. I give them what they want. And then I get that certificate and I move on to the next thing I need.
What they really, really want.
Oh my God. Emma, you have to have a shelf full of beans.
I am going to have it. Well, so let me talk about we're going to talk about the merchandising here. This is an
Emma's beans. Oh my gosh, why haven't we done this?
Oh my gosh. Beans.
No,
I think I'm watching a Mel Brooks movie all of a sudden.
So, as everyone knows, the shop is called Mototown, and Mototown is primarily a black background with Mototown written like it's blue neon, and that's the logo. However, there's going to be there's going to be a limited edition T-shirt with a screenshot of a load of baked beans on the back with "Give it the beans."
Nice.
And as well as the merchandising of the stickers and the T-shirt and the business card and the work shirts, it's very, very important part, the central merchandising, the Mototown whoopee cushion, which I'll be handing out at the Quail for 2022. I'm probably going to get 100 of these things made.
Yes, that's great.
I'll be I'll be giving them out at the Quail, and they will be baked bean color.
And Chris, you had a quote you wanted to share, some advice for her from the aviation podcast. Do you remember this?
Yes, it's in my email.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Yes, would you? Please do.
If it moves, just squirt it with something. That is some solid advice.
It is. It is some great advice.
I think Jim needs that advice the most. Jim, if it moves, just squirt it with something.
Yeah.
And if it shouldn't move, wrap it in duct tape.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or
wait, can't we do both?
Or Gibby Weld.
Okay, I heard that. I'm going to chime in. I was making a cocktail. Sorry. Yes. And if you ever spit works for everything.
So, it reminds me very much of a flow chart I did for one of my old bosses, and no, I'm not going to tell you who it was. And it was a very simple flow chart that I wrote on a large piece of cardboard, and at the top it said, "Am I being an asshole?" And then you drop down, and if it was yes, it went to stop being an asshole. And then it went to no, carry on, chap. And that was it. And I gave it, I presented it to him, and I said, look at the flow chart every morning. Look at the flow chart. Are you being an asshole? Yes. Stop being an asshole.
So I can vouch for this because I went to that shop in Monterey and I was standing at the counter and I looked from the counter into the window that went to the service bay, and there's a cardboard sign. It said exactly that. I'm like, oh my God. How to tell your boss not to be an asshole by a flow chart in front of the customers.
Right.
But it worked.
And that might be another idea for a shirt for you to make up too.
Yeah, it could be.
That would be a great one.
So anyway, do you have a?
I do actually have one. First, I'd like to say to Ethan, applaud your effort. I have a good friend of mine that rode the 2017 Iron Butt Rally on a GT750, which is a 76. And that was probably about 8,000 miles he did.
Wow.
And he is riding the 2021 on a 75 GT550, which was actually one of my park bikes he just rebuilt. So you're not alone. So
you're not the only crazy motherfucker out there.
Yes. And like, so this my buddy Jerry is probably going to be doing about 8,000 to 9,000 miles in 11 days. So
wow.
You know,
that's a radiator.
These vintage bikes are capable of some higher mileages. It's just, you've got to remember that you're on an older bike. And I mean, my friend McCarthy summed it up very, very well, because we went out on a shakedown run with me on the Trident, and he was following me on his Pria Dosadero. And he was having a great time watching me riding this Trident around. And he said, he said, as you're kind of like your wingman, the thing I've got to remember is that the standards of motorcycles from 1972 are not the same as 2019. Am I going to smell hot oil once in a while? Yes. Am I going to see a whiff of smoke when you shift gear? Yes. Am I going to smell unburnt fuel? Yes. Am I going to see you, Emma, struggling for control once in a while? Yes, because this is the nature of an older bike. So, you know, we all get used to these fuel-injected, perfect handling, perfect braking things that we have now. But it wasn't always like that. So, there we go. Yeah. So anyway, ask away, Chris.
So my question, if you remember a couple months, 2 or 3 months ago, I emailed you, I'm prepping my bike for the Iron Butt Rally, my 2006 Sportster.
Yes, with like a gazillion, trillion, bajillion miles on it.
287. So it's just getting broken in. So I was just starting to pull the primary apart, and I noticed I had a rather significant amount of metal on the drain plug from the primary.
Okay.
And it took a while to find it, but then I noticed some of the teeth on around the clutch hub, ring gear. Is that the right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yes. Some of the teeth are shorter than the rest of them, so I'm assuming that somehow those teeth got chipped and worn in. I haven't noticed any grinding. At least I hadn't for a while when the starter was new. I'm just trying to figure out why it would have done that. You know, do I just simply have a bad part?
No, not at all. It's the simplest thing in the world. So if you think about the way a V-twin engine works, is there are two cylinders, they're 45 degrees apart, and the firing order goes front, whoomp, whoomp, back. And then a quick front, whoomp, whoomp, back. So the distance between the firing on the front and the back is quite long. And then the next cycle, back to front, is quite short. This is a very long explanation for a short drink of water. Basically, when you turn the bike off, there's a very, very good chance that the engine stops in pretty much the same place. Because when you turn the ignition switch off, you're cutting the fuel injection, you're cutting the ignition. So the engine, if it's idling at like 500-600 RPM, it basically coasts to a stop, and it doesn't take long, but it coasts to a stop in the area of the most friction, which is usually coming up on compression. So it's basically, it's going to stop in the same spot.
So is that at the beginning or the end of the font?
Well, it'll be on, it'll go through the woof, woof, and then when it's coming up on compression, that's where it's going to stop.
Yeah.
So
right before the next font.
So the engine basically stops in about the same place. Now, because it's stopping in the same place, when you engage the starter, and you're going to say, well, hang on a minute, the teeth on the clutch drum are larger than on the engine. And that is true, but the ratio never changes. So if you multiply, how many starts would you estimate you've made in 300,000 miles, Chris?
I have absolutely no clue.
Thousands.
No,
Tens of thousands.
Well, I will say this, I basically replace the whole primary every 2 years, right before the armbar.
Right.
I've been in there for 2 years.
But basically, I think the point I'm driving at is the starter motor is pretty much engaging when that moving gear slams out into the back of the clutch drum. It's in about the same quarter, which is why you get wear in a particular area. Now, if you were to get, say, I'm trying to think of a high mileage car engine, like a 350 Chevy, a Super Rat. I remember back when I first came out to the States and I was doing a lot of race tuning on Super Rats, you jack them up, and the transmission on a 350 transmission's really weird. It's only like the top half where it bolts to the back of the engine, and the bottom of the flywheel's exposed. And when the engines are new, they have this tin cover that they put on them. But people throw them away straight away. So you can see half the flywheel. And as you turn the engine over, the flywheel would look perfect. And then you'd get to a spot which usually occupied about half of the, about a third of the flywheel, where the teeth were just completely torn up. And that's where the majority of the starting took place, in that particular spot, because the engine was basically stopping at about the same place. So I think that's what you've got. And as I told you back then, when you said you know, what can you do to prepare it? You get the same answer as Ethan. There's very little. You can deal yourself a good hand, and the same answer applies to him as applies to you. Make sure your tires are good. You're not going to have a problem with not fresh tires because you put on so many miles. Your tires are never going to get old because you'll wear them out first. Make sure the tires are fresh. Make sure you're probably still running belts, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got belts. You know, belts are actually the wild card. And I mean, I know you'll back me up on this, Rick. I have seen quite spectacular failure on Harley belts.
Yes.
It takes some doing.
What really sucks is that the belt is hidden behind your inner primary after pulling out your charging system and your clutch basket. You know, it's you got hours of work
Not-
to get to it.
Not on the Sportster, it's not.
Oh, you're doing Sportster things? Oh, hell yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
oh, you win. I was about to say, unless you have a Sportster and it's on the right side, it's one cover, you're fucking pumped. You can snake it around your swing arm, yeah.
But, you know,
Yep.
certainly on a Zero, which has a narrower belt, you know, a gravel road can take out a belt in
Yeah.
20 seconds
Oh yeah.
because you get one stone punch through the belt. Harley belts are made of stone
Mileage
and
is
stuff,
irrelevant.
but nevertheless. But make sure it's adjusted correctly. Make sure it's obviously in good condition, hasn't got any holes in it. And just understand that when something gets to an age that is way beyond its service life, you know, it becomes, your Harley is not a product of Harley Davidson anymore. It's a product of Chris. And you're diligent. I mean, you know, you might as well take Harley Davidson off the tank and put Chris Comley on the tank, because that's what it is. It's a product of you. You've taken care of it. All Harley Davidson needs is build it in the first place. That was a long time ago.
And I guarantee you didn't leave it alone in a stock form also.
Right.
Actually, well, the engine itself is stock.
Okay.
You know, just because I figure with miles, I'm better off with a stock factory engine.
Yep.
And I mean, this is good advice for everyone. Never, ever underestimate the power of preventative maintenance.
Yes.
So here's a question for all the misfits, and every single one of you should know this answer, is when I am not riding a motorcycle, what is my favorite motor car?
Are you talking about the kitten?
Jaguar?
Yes. Everyone knows.
We got it right.
Everyone knows that Emma loves her Jags. What the misfits probably don't realize is I'm on Jag number 7. Every single Jag I've had has gone way beyond 250,000 miles.
I remember.
Every single Jag I've had has had the original engine, the original transmission, an original third member, because I take care of them.
Nice.
You know, they're capable of massive mileages. No matter what people say, they're a very well-engineered car.
Yeah.
You know?
Over-engineered.
In a lot of cases, yeah. I mean, the one I have now is actually my least favorite because it's the most complex of them all. Yeah. However, you know, that aside, I take care of it. The oil gets changed, the fluids gets changed, it stays on tune, I stay on top of the plugs and everything, and it provides me with very, very good service. So the power of preventative maintenance is really, it's beyond valuable. So there you go.
And that's why it goes on the list to replace the primary and a few key other parts that I know where, you know, swing arm bearings.
Right.
You know, I know they're good because I've ridden on bad swing arm bearings and they really suck.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, a bike steering both ends, it's downright scary.
Yes.
So it sounds like a new starter ring gear and a you know, a gear for the starter itself will get you down the road.
Yeah, because I've just, you know, you said I've done this same maintenance several times, and I've never had this issue, which is what surprised me.
Yeah, but you know, occasionally, you know, the manufacturer will drop the ball, even if you're using genuine parts. You know, a ring gear is a hardened part. They you know, they harden it so much you don't want it to be brittle, but you want a hardness on it, and. It's a science in that it has to be heated up to a temperature of X and then quenched, and then you get the correct hardness. But then you need somebody to sweat it on to the back of the clutch hub. And that's where if they leave it in the oven a bit longer and you change the hardening when you put it on the back, that changes the actual hardening process. So it might have had that. You know, they vary from bike to bike. You might have just got a bad one.
That's what I'm suspecting.
Yeah.
Emma, you've shown us that you have a depth of knowledge on motorcycles and on cars. I never know how. I mean, where your knowledge ends. I got a question for you myself. On my 2009 Whirlpool washing machine, when I put it on the hot cold setting, it doesn't always switch from hot to cold in the middle cycle. What?
Oh, I know why.
Oh, what is it?
It's water pressure, darling. Because that hot cold switch, it works on a pressure differential. So what you've got to do is you've got to figure out when you turn on the faucet, you've got to make sure that your hot pressure is the same as your cold pressure. If it's not, that won't switch.
Thank
you. That's why it won't switch. It's a pressure differential. Anything else?
Yeah, on my Oster. No, we're gonna have to do that sometime. I really want to play Stump Miss Emma.
Vintage toaster troubleshooting.
Ooh.
So I'm glad I've got Chris on the line because so I'm going to put it out there, out in Misfit land. I'm on the warpath for a new bike.
Right. And I know what you want.
I want a GT 550. However, I'm going to be very, very specific. So bear in mind, this is Emma you're talking about now, any condition. I want a GT 550K. That's the 1973 model. That's the first model with the disc brake, but it still has the old-fashioned instrument pack.
Nice.
So
very nice.
If anybody out there in Misfit land knows where Emma can get a GT 550K, doesn't matter what condition it's in, because number one, it'll be restored. Doesn't matter what color it is, because it's going to end up in candy pea green, which was the original paint color for it.
That's such a horrible color name.
What's that? Candy pea green?
Pea green.
There is no candy pea. Just disassociate those words.
And surprisingly enough, it is actually green and not yellow.
Are you sure it's not Airbox pea green?
No, that's Airbox PP green.
Emma, I thought for sure you were going to say an AMF Sportster.
You know, I kind of dig AMF Sportsters, but I need to relive my youth a little bit.
Ooh.
And, you know, an 18-year-old Emma was riding around the streets of Sutton Coldfield on a GT 550K.
And I seem to recall you did a whole special on that series at one point, didn't you?
Well, you know, it's funny that the 550 was always the Cinderella of the range for a long, long time because, of course, the Water Buffalo got all the glory, and we know that.
Yeah.
And then the little 380 triple, people liked the 380 because it had a 6-speed transmission. And then the poor 550, which in a lot of ways was the best of the bunch, was kind of like the little overlooked one. And people are getting wise to it now. And 550s are actually beginning to fetch good money now. And that's why I'm putting... Sorry?
Sorry, go ahead.
I
was just going to ask you, what's the standard instrument pack? I don't know.
Okay,
is that before the gears?
Yes. Oh, yeah. So the difference in the instrument packs. Here's a very, very brief history hole on Suzuki triples. Launched in 1972 as the J model. That's GT380J, GT550J, GT750J. Drum front brake on all of them. The 380 had a single-sided drum front brake. The 550 and the 750 had a twin-sided twin-leading shoe front brake. Now, these are considered the most valuable of the lot. But in real terms, you know, they're not the nicest to ride because they've got this front brake that looks brilliant, but it's actually awful. And on the 380 and the 550, the best way to describe the instrument packs, it looks like a pair of binoculars. You've got these big round parts and it's wasted in the middle, just like the shape of the taillight. And you can see that Suzuki kind of followed that design through. They wanted the instrument pack to be the same shape as the taillight.
Nice.
And then, of course, it's got the turn signals that look like the phasers from Star Trek. Yours has still got that. And a lot of very unique features that were just unique to the GT range. I mean, Suzuki were very, very proud of this bike. Now, in 74, the Ls came along. And if I remember right, Chris, you've got an L. And
Yes.
the L, the instrument binnacle is actually far more of kind of like an oblong with round edges. And you've got this kind of smoked plastic in the middle with your idiot lights kind of hidden behind the smoke glass and the gear indicator in the middle of that. It's very, very handsome. But, you know, I had a K when I was a kid. So I want another K. And I want it to be candy pea green because that's the color mine was.
I'll laugh every time you say that.
You'd prefer it if I said candy pea, wouldn't you? That's a different color.
That goes in the box.
Yeah, I think we did that one of our videos. The Misfits, where you talked about the GTs when we were at the Jameson Museum.
I'm absolutely enthralled with GTs. I think they're the most wonderful motorcycle in the world by far.
Which is just a reminder that if you would like to see some of our videos, we have a whole YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, Recycle Santa Cruz. And all of our podcasts, we've been putting these Zoom calls on there so you can watch the video too. Because sometimes there's crazy shenanigans like there's about to be.
Oh, really?
Yes. But first, I wanted to say thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you especially to our Patreon subscribers and to Gary and Chris and Ethan for joining us. For all of the people who sent in the entries for the Evel Knievel contest, we had so much fun with that.
Oh,
really.
didn't we? Oh, my God.
And also big shout out and thanks to Phil and the guys at Cleveland Moto for having me join them. We're going to do things a little bit differently. Usually we do a roll call. We're not going to do it. Instead, I think we're going to do a dance party. What do you think about that?
All right.
So this is our winner for the Evel Knievel contest. Whoa, what?
Oh.
The gym? Oh, here we go. Wait, here we go.
Dance off, pants off.
Oh, wait. Why isn't it working? It's working. Wait.
What?
Wait. Hold on. Something's not working.
You
did?
I'm
I don't
quivering
know.
in anticipation.
I know, right? Okay.
I got my stripper pole.
I got this.
coming up.
I got this. Hold on. I can do this.
All right, Jim, let's get sexy.
You can't escape from
Stop the
that.
mic.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service.
Turn it up.
Everyone get ready to dance.
Recording an error. Please check the number and try your call again.
Crash landing on his Harley Davidson. He's the pride of Moses Lake, Washington, and the risks that he did take. They was many and they was great, and the legs that he did break. Not for nothing that shit weren't fake. That Snake River and his soaked liver. That Snake River and his soaked liver. Flying over buses, Lord knows you can't trust us. We're flying over buses, Lord knows you can't trust us. Well, I could spit further than she could jump. Well, I could spit further than she could jump. Crash landing on his Harley Davidson. He's the pride of Moses Lake, Washington, and the risks that he did take. They was many and they was great, and the legs that he did break. Not for nothing that shit weren't fake. That Snake River and his soaked liver. That Snake River and his soaked liver. Flying over buses, Lord knows you can't trust us. We're flying over buses, Lord knows you can't trust us. Well, I could spit further than she could jump. spit further than she could jump.
Wow.
Yeah. All
Whew.
right.
Ian,
I was trying to light starter on fluid, but I almost burned my arm off.
a master,
Your nipple hair after
masterpiece.
that. That kind of something was getting serious over there, and I was really sad I couldn't.
On that note, we are out of here.
Cool.
Cool.
Where's my
For the
pants?
mercy. Oh my god. I smell like
Oh
jet
my God.
fuel.